When we had this next guest on our show back in August, I knew that we would have to get him on for a part 2 of that conversation because we had such a great time talking to Tommy Cook about his days as a child actor during the golden age of radio and on film in many, many roles, including as Little Beaver in the Western serial The Adventures of Red Ryder, that by the time the interview was over, I think Tommy had just turned 9, so I knew we'd have to have him back on. We're so excited to welcome Tommy Cook back to the program.
Thank you. Good to be back.
And the reason I started off the interview with the Cadets and their song Stranded in the Jungle is because you were maybe not stranded in the jungle, but you were in the jungle on film with Tarzan.
Tarzan and the Leopard Woman.
Tarzan and the Leopard Woman. One of the original Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan pictures.
Johnny Weissmuller, Brenda Joyce, and Johnny Sheffield, who played Boy.
Wow.
We made that film right around the end of the Second World War.
Uh-huh.
And we shot it right near Santa Anita Racetrack in Pasadena, because in those days it looked like jungle warfare, and the stuntmen were jumping from one tree to another, and it was a great experience. I had a great time with Johnny Weissmuller and Brenda Joyce. With Johnny Sheffield, there was a little bit of we respected each other, but little competitiveness between the two of us. When we had a fight scene, it was sort of real in the film. But he was awfully good as Boy. And also in that film was Aquanetta, a very glamorous and sexy woman. She played the Leopard Woman in the film. Kurt Newman, I believe, directed it. I ended up doing another film, a Western film, years later with Kurt. So we had a nice, very nice relationship.
Now, were you under contract during this time, or were you a free agent going from studio to studio?
I was basically just had an agent. I had several major agencies. William Morris at one time, when I was very young, was my agent, and you can't get much bigger than that.
Right, yes.
And but my mother also served as an agent. She always had to be on the set with me. For any child actor working in films, not radio, but just films, under 18, had to have 4 hours of instruction. But later on, in my mid-teens, I had sort of a short-term contract at 20th Century Fox. I did Cry of the City, which is a wonderful noir film directed by Robert Siadmak, with Victor Mature, Richard Conte. I played Richard Conte's brother in that. And Homestretch, I played a jockey in that film with Cornel Wilde and Maureen O'Hara. And the Kazan film, Panic in the Streets. I was the only actor brought from Hollywood to New Orleans to shoot that film with Kazan. And I think probably the reason was because I had that short-term contract with 20th Century Fox. Because Kazan used all his actor studio people and people that he'd worked with in New York.
Well, because when I look at your filmography, certainly you were busy. There's no question about that. Yeah. I mean, you were in sometimes 4, 5, 6 movies a year.
Yeah, they were wonderful experiences, all good, all very positive. I never had a problem with any of them. I remember in one Western, did we mention in our last interview about Neville Brand?
No, we didn't.
Well, I did a Western, I think Mohawk, and Neville Brand, who was a very qualified and successful actor, not as a star, but he was a tough son of a gun, and he was a very, very decorated hero in the World War, second only maybe to Audie Murphy. And we did a scene together, and he punched me right in the stomach. Had nothing to do with the scene, but he got wound up, and he just hit me. Thank goodness, at the last second, I saw that fist coming, and I sort of tightened up. Otherwise, I could have been seriously hurt.
Yeah.
But other than that, all my experiences were just very positive and wonderful. My mother kept a scrapbook. I have 2 or 3 scrapbooks, and in those scrapbooks, my mother would take them around at the films when I was young and get all the principals to write something in it. So those scrapbooks are memorable.
Oh, boy.
Every once in a while I keep going through them, and it brings back such memories.
I can imagine. And the names that must be captured in those scrapbooks.
Oh, yeah. You know, to give you an idea, if I may take a moment.
Sure.
I just starred in a radio show for a radio convention called Spurtback. We do it each year in the Hollywood area. We just did it at the Long Beach Veterans Hospital. And it so happens that they have a stage there called the Pantages Theater. And in the golden days of radio, Jack Benny and the Bob Hope shows occasionally would perform at this Long Beach Veterans Hospital in the Pantages Theater.
Wow.
So we did this show, and I've got to read this to you. Jimmy Weldon, a dear friend, and who made so many films, a lot of stuff where he did special voices for Disney, and he's in his early 90s now, but still has it all. He sent me an email after doing the show. Tommy, there is no way to describe how wonderful that last performance of yours and Beverly Washburn was last night. I cried like a little baby, unashamedly, and I would do it all over again. Powerful, so real, so moving, so beautiful. Bless your heart. The hour and 10-minute drive back here to Burbank seemed to float by. And thank you for keeping my script together. My reading was so amateurish, but all the others of the cast were brilliant. I hope I will have another opportunity to be a part in the next Spurtback gathering. Love you so much, Tommy. Jimmy. Was that a sweet note to send to me?
That's fantastic.
People don't realize that in the golden days of radio was number one in entertainment. There was no television, and radio was much, much bigger than movies. I mean, 80 to 90 million people a week would tune into their favorite soap operas, their favorite comedies, their favorite dramatic radio shows. And as I probably told you before, those days at NBC, Sunset and Vine and CBS,
I know.
Those were the most memorable years of my life and the happiest years of my life, because at the end of doing a radio show in the evening, my folks would come and pick me up, and I would sit on my mother's lap. My dad would drive us home. And, I knew I gave a lot of pleasure to my parents during those days. But go ahead.
I was going to say, did you get a sense when you moved to television, because you started working in television pretty early too?
Yes.
Did you get a sense that television was going to replace radio?
Yeah. Yeah. It was inevitable. And I remember in my very young years starting to do television. I started in a show with Natalie Wood for Fireside Theater, Frank Wisbar, directing Fireside Theater. And then Natalie and I started in a show at Columbia. oh my goodness, my memory. What was it? Ford Theater. Ford Theater. The two of us starred in it. Now, of course, I've got a crush on Natalie. And finally, when I got up the nerve to try to invite her out, she was doing, with Nick Ray, one of those classic films with, it wasn't East of Eden, was it?
Rebel Without a Cause.
Rebel Without a Cause, yeah, she did that. She started going with Nick Ray, the director, and so that took care of that. But every time I made a film, when I did Cry of the City at Fox, Deborah Patchett,
oh,
it was her first film. She was about 19. They tested her at Fox. Her test was great. They put her under contract. Now, working with her in the film, she's just adorable.
Oh.
So at the end of the film, I got the nerve and I invited her out, and she accepted. So I go to her apartment near the Miracle Mile in the heart of L.A., right near Hollywood, and knock on the door. The door opens, and this big woman, her mother, says, yes. And I said, well, I'm Tommy Cook. I worked with your daughter in Cry of the City, and we're going out, and is she there now? Oh, yes, just wait a moment, please. Just wait a moment. So I wait, and a couple of moments later, Deborah comes out. Oh, hi, Tommy, let's go now. And the mother follows us right out the door. No way was she going to allow Tommy Cook to spend time with her daughter. She followed us everywhere we went.
From 1956, Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers with I'm Not a Juvenile Delinquent. And our guest today, Tommy Cook, appeared in several JD or teenage crime films beginning in the late 1940s and right through the 1950s.
Yeah, I made a picture called Teenage Crime Wave.
What's on your mind, mister?
Why, you dirty little tramp. Over 25% of the crimes committed in this country are perpetrated by teenagers. Only an aroused public can put an end to this.
We're coming in, Pa. Don't give us any trouble. Nobody gets hurt.
This is the killer, Mike Denton. 2 prior arrests.
We're really playing this up.
This is Terry Marsh. A second conviction for armed robbery.
Ah, dig that profile.
This is the third member of the trio, Jane Coberly.
I starred in 5 or 6 films in my teenage years. One of them, The Vicious Years.
Yes.
That I starred in. I won the Photoplay Award for one of the leading performances of the year. And Robert Flory, who was an Emmy television director award winner, was very, very nice. I like to choreograph scenes. I like to put things together. I started at the Pasadena Playhouse. I did 7 straight plays, one of them with George Reeves. I'm looking at a picture now of George Reeves and myself when I was about 8 years old in a clown outfit. I'm looking at it right now.
Wow.
Wish you could see it. But anyway, Robert Flory allowed me to choreograph setting up some scenes. Now I'm going to tell you something about that film. A young kid, there was a street scene of a fight in the Vicious Years, and at the end of the film, they called me back. They said they want to reshoot. They want to reshoot a couple of scenes. So I don't know. I said, fine, I show up. In those days, you're on a big, big set and a big stage, and there's Rusty Tamblyn, a young Rusty Tamblyn. Nobody ever heard of him.
Right.
And I'm introduced to him. I said, hi, what's happening? And so the director came and he says, well, Rusty he's going to take over those scenes you originally didn't quite work for us. and we want you to do the scene over again with Rusty Tamblyn. So I said, fine. And so we did the scenes, and we played a couple of scugnits, those Italian guys that live off the street, and I blackmailed this family, and when I saw the son of this family commit a murder, I went to the house and I blackmailed them to take me in and give me food and give me clothes and stuff. Anyway, the original kid, I had known. And when the picture, just before the picture came out, the original kid called me up on the phone and he said, how did it go? Was I good? Did everything work out? And I didn't know what to say. I said, oh, yeah, it was, everything was just fine, just dandy. And, of course, he goes to the film when it opens at the Pantages Theater at Hollywood and Vine, and he sees Rusty Tamblyn playing his role.
Oh,
gosh.
Boy.
But when I went into the Marine Corps, I made a film in the Philippines called American Girl in the Philippines with Tyrone Power. And Tyrone at that time was the #1 box office in the world.
Right.
And so we went to the Philippines and shot the film for 3 or 4 months in Olongapo, Subic Naval Base, which was owned by America at that time. Now it's strictly owned by the Philippines. And I played the Filipino underground leader, spoke a little Visayan. Duda ba hapon dini? Nakaiblo ba ka mo ginikitaw? Dini sa Mindanao.
That's pretty good.
I still remember some lines there.
Wow.
So when I come back, I get a letter that I'm drafted because I was also going to UCLA, taking a full course.
Right.
So I decided, hey, I have to go in. I'm going to go in with the best. So I go downtown, and I sneak into the Marine Corps. And I'll never forget, I called my mom, and she says, oh, Tom, have a wonderful trip going to Fort Ord. We'll come, Dad and I will come to visit you up in San Francisco area there when you have a little furlough time in the Army. I said, oh, Mom, I'm not going to Fort Ord. Well, what do you mean? I'm going down to San Diego Recruit Depot. I'm now a United States Marine. Boom went the phone. my mom almost had a heart attack. But I went through boot camp training there and then to Camp Pendleton in Oceanside, and very proud to have been a Marine. And but when I got out of the Marine Corps, I decided that maybe I can't keep doing these juvenile roles. You know, I played tough guys so many times, and I was just 5 feet 7 inches, an eyelash under 5 feet 7. And I said, maybe I better start creating some projects for myself. And I ended up creating the original concept for the Mod Squad. I won't go into how that happened, but I'm responsible for the Mod Squad. And then, of course, I loved roller coasters and had gone around the country when I was shooting films, and we went on location, and I would go to the nearest amusement park and go on the roller coasters. And I came up with a storyline and a marketing strategy, and I sold Roller Coaster to Universal.
Get ready for the thrill of your life. Now, Universal plunges you into a mystery at the speed of sound. Roller Coaster. An accident in California.
That's 2 accidents in 1 week. Who's putting the lid on this, the police?
A recording from a stranger.
Get on the ride, Harry.
A drop in Virginia.
Harry.
Yeah.
Remember what happens when you don't follow directions.
And a man in the middle on the ride of his life.
They're over the lift. It's too late to stop them now.
Let's go.
Rollercoaster.
For the benefit of the audience, that's the movie that George Segal was
Yes.
the star in, yeah.
He was the star of it. I always thought that the hero should be a young person, but I had some problems with Universal, such as when I sold it to Jennings Lang, who was the top producer at Universal, and I knew him. You know, in between my film assignments, I was producing and directing celebrity charity tennis and golf events all over the world.
Right.
For years with the royal family of Monaco, when Prince Rainier and Princess Grace and Prince Albert, they all played in the tournaments. Those were the days. But anyway, Ned Tannen was a good friend of mine. He was president of Universal at the time. And when I sent the script to Jennings Lang, I didn't hear from him. I can tell you this now because he's passed away. And his wife, Monica Lewis, the singer, has passed away.
Right.
But I called his office because I haven't heard back from Jennings. And I said, I'm just calling to see if Jennings has read the script. And if so, I'd like to get his feelings. If not, if he has and he's not interested, I'd appreciate if he'd send the project back to me. 10 minutes later, I get a call. Jennings Lang's on the phone. What are you yelling at my people for? I said, Jennings, what are you talking about? I said, I just called to find out if you've had a chance to read it. Yes, I read it. And, yeah, we're going to do something. And I said, well, I'd like to be active with you because I've gone around to all these amusement parks and all these roller coasters, and I think I have an awful lot to contribute to the film besides just a profit participation. In those days, there was no gross. It was all profit participation,
right.
And you always got screwed, you know. They had 3 books, and if the film made $100 million, it would show $7 million that it made, you know.
Right.
Anyway, he says, you have to talk to the head of business. So I said, okay. I called business, and they said, oh, yes, Mr. Cook. Jennings Lang is making the film now, and they brought in Mr. Newman to direct the film, and it's all set. I said, it's what? He said, it's all set. I said, oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think maybe you better call my attorney, and you better speak to him. So the head of business affairs calls my attorney, and who was my attorney and dear friend for so many years. He was married at one time to Melissa Gilbert. Remember, she was the star of Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
And my lawyer had a Southern accent, so the business manager calls him, and he says, oh, yes, I understand that you're going to be doing the film that my client created. And he said, yeah. And I said, we'd like to talk about a deal. And he said, well, here's what we want. We want this, we want this, we want this. And he says, are you out of your mind? We don't pay money like that. He says, well, that's fine. Thank you. It's been nice talking to you. Goodbye. Hangs up. 10 minutes later, the head of business affairs calls him, and he says, well, if we make a deal with the kind of arrangement that you would like, can we do it on a step deal? In other words, we'll pay you X amount of dollars right now, X amount of dollars when we go into production, and X amount of dollars when it finally is shown, you know, to the masses. Yes, I think we can arrange that. But can you believe I'm the one that was my film. I created it, and they go and they make a deal without setting a deal with me first. That's the way they worked. That's the way they worked in those days.
Wow. Well,
I own 7.5% of the film. It made good monies, and I've never seen it. I must say, I got paid very, very well. More than any. I was associate producer on the film. That credit I was given. but I made a hell of a lot more money than the usual associate producer, and you can imagine why. But I never made a penny on my profit participation, based on the Zanuck-Brown formula, which was supposed to be more helpful to the creators. But, they sizzled their books,
Yes.
and so I never received a penny in profit participation. But the film was made in sets around, and more importantly, it ignited development of roller coaster themed parks around the world.
Right.
And then I wrote a screenplay, a tennis film that I sold to my good friend Robert Evans, who of course was head of production at Paramount, and then left and had his own independent company at Paramount. And we shot Players there with Maximilian Schell and McGraw. What was her first name?
Ally McGraw.
Ally McGraw and Steve Gutenberg. And I was the associate producer and directed some of the tennis sequences. We were the first company ever allowed to shoot at Wimbledon. And what experiences those were. And so today, I'm working for the follow-up, what we call the prequel to Rollercoaster, called Rollercoaster Madness. And it's actually the best piece of work I've done. I have a co-writer on it, a gentleman who used to work so closely with Norman Corwin and Mike Casey. And so I've got investors, and somehow I'm going to make this film work.
Well, Tommy, you did it all. I mean, I don't think there's any part of show business that you weren't involved in at some point.
Well, I want to tell you, to sum this all up, I'm very grateful to have been a part of one of the most wonderful entities in the world, the entertainment industry. Some of the most talented, creative, loving people in all the walks, from not just the actors, but in all the other fields, the writers and the cinematographers, the greatest bunch of people in the world. And I'm just honored that I've been able to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful industry.
Well, Tommy, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad we got to get a part two.
I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Yes.
And keep doing the great work, will you?
Oh, thank you. And you too.